and welcome to Webhack Wednesday. I am Martin Beebe.
And I'm Martin Kern.
And today we are going to be talking about...
Visual Studio 2017 Update 3.
Yes. Right, production meeting.
Yeah. Now listen, we need to talk about Visual Studio.
Okay.
The fact is they pay our wages. We've signed a contract with them which guarantees them certain concessions.
Okay.
And basically we need to promote it.
Right. Well, that's where I see things just a little bit differently. Contract or no, I won't bow to any sponsor.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but it's basically the nature of the beast.
Maybe I'm wrong on this one, but for me, the beast doesn't include selling out. Come on, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I understand it's like people only do things because they get paid. It's really sad.
Oh, I can't talk about it anymore. It's giving me a headache.
Here, take 2 of these.
Little. Purple. Different.
Look, you can stay here in the big leagues and play by the rules, or you can go back to the cold streets of Corby. It's your choice.
You're right. As far as choices go, I'll choose productivity every time. Visual Studio really is the best-in-class tool for any developer at any time. Let's talk about Visual Studio then.
Yeah, okay, so Visual Studio 2017 has been out for a while now, but we just released on the 14th of August Update 3.
Okay.
And with that came a load of stuff for web developers.
Right.
And also .NET Core 2.0 as well.
Okay.
So it's quite a big release, lots of stuff in there. We're just going to go through some of the cool things that are new in there. So first thing I want to talk about, so this is the blog that we have, and this kind of covers... You can kind of just search for this. It covers like what's in the update, just generally. There's some stuff around Azure Functions. There's some stuff around .NET Core. There's a nice little video there that tells you all about. There's some stuff on the Mac as well. So that's kind of a good starting point to sort of find out more.
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk about is Web Essentials. So you're familiar with Web Essentials, right? We've talked about this in the past. So this is a kind of tool that's been around, I think, almost as much as Visual Studio has, about optimizing Visual Studio for web devs.
Yep.
Now, kind of a while ago, Mads Christensen, the guy that's kind of behind that from Microsoft, announced that it wasn't going to be continued anymore. But they've kind of reversed on that now. So what it is now, the problem always was with Web Essentials, there's loads of stuff in there, and all developed kind of separately. And if one thing had a problem, it would crash Visual Studio because it's like one huge extension. So what they've done now is they've kind of packaged it out as an extension that installs other extensions.
Okay.
And you can kind of pick and choose which ones are installed. So that's kind of a great tool. So some stuff I'm going to show you today is kind of, some of it's in Visual Studio itself, some is an extension, some's part of web extensions, some's part of just other extensions. So we'll go through the whole thing. Okay, so first set of cool things to look at is a new set of templates around ASP.NET.
Okay.
So ASP.NET, typically in core at least, you can go file new project, web template, and there's not really many choices. So we've got some more choices now, which for different scenarios. So if we just take a little look, so I'm going to load up Visual Studio. It's still no quicker loading.
This is quite fast, yeah. This is speedy. Like, let's pretend we'll cut that bit out. Yeah. And then it start. Wow, it started in
really
like
quick,
3 seconds. Yeah.
So file new projects. We've all done this before. I'm going to choose ASP.NET Core. I'm just going to put it in my little folder here.
Oh, you're so organised.
I am very organised. That seems okay to me. Now this is through an extension, and we've got these 3 here.
High performance.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
wow.
first thing is static web.
Right.
So this is basically kind of one step up from empty. Yep. So it's got basically a standard HTML page, standard JavaScript.
So empty is
it's
another,
really empty now.
It's an empty, like got nothing in it, but there's still stuff in it.
Exactly. Yeah. So
and then this is static web is less empty.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's crucially, it's got a NuGet package on there called. Let me make sure I get this right. The ASP.NET Core Static Site Helper.
Right.
And what that does, it gives you some of the tooling from ASP.NET without needing ASP.NET.
Right.
Okay, and that's what's in this one here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's kind of cool if you want to just a fairly blank web application with nothing really in it.
Yep.
But you want to use some of the ASP.NET tooling. That's the one to go for.
Right.
So the other thing we've got is MVC Basic.
Yep.
Now what this is an MVC application, but it doesn't have like jQuery, it doesn't have Bootstrap, it doesn't have a lot of the front end stuff that's in the standard templates. It's kind of very much a bare bones MVC application.
Right.
Just a controller, just a view, and that's pretty much it basically. So and a model of course as well.
Okay.
Otherwise it would just be VC.
So what does MVC Professional look like?
Well, MVC High Performance. you
Oh.
know.
Okay,
So,
I've got MVC Home, MVC Basic, MVC
y-
Professional is what really they should
Yeah,
have
well,
done.
yeah.
Never mind.
Well, I guess professional is MVC High Performance.
Yep.
Now, what this is the MVC Basic template tuned to be high performance.
Okay.
So it's got Gulp in there, and it's got some stuff in there about minification, about bundling, all the kind of performancey stuff that we've covered a few times in the past. So and it's got some of the server-side performance tweaks as well. So
Yeah.
if you start with that one, you'll pass all the performance tests straight away without needing to worry about it. I don't know why that wasn't the basic one, to be honest, but I guess it's because it has Gulp and a few other things
Yep.
in there. So there's some interesting stuff. I'm not going to create any of these. You can get the add-in, this extension, and do this yourself. But those are just some new templates around ASP.
And sorry, they are part of the update, or are they part of this extension?
Those are part of a separate extension, those particular ones.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, what is part of the update, you may have noticed as well, we've got Angular, React, and React with Redux as well.
Yeah.
So these are set of, again, this is part of .NET Core. You won't get, if I filter onto .NET Core 1.1, you won't get that stuff.
Yeah.
It's only with .NET Core 2. These are basically ASP.NET applications with these various front-end frameworks. So
Sure.
we've got some really kind of cool stuff. So let's just create, I'm just going to create an Angular one,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll just see what happens with that. So basically what we've got is we've got some server-side stuff that works with the front-end framework. So it does things like server-side pre-rendering. So it doesn't render all that JavaScript in the client. It renders it on the server and sends it out to the client.
Yep.
We've got some stuff, it uses Webpack by default as well for all the bundling and the kind of package management and stuff. And that will be able to do server reloads as well. So you edit in Visual Studio and it will reload automatically on the client.
Right.
Which is all these stuff which is quite difficult to do with these front-end frameworks.
I guess if it's doing server-side rendering, it must be using the Angular CLI. So I'm assuming we're
Guess so,
talking
yeah.
about Angular 2.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So
But we can tell if
We
you
can.
go into dependencies. If you break that down, yeah,
okay.
and then you go into is it npm they're using for dependencies nowadays. Click on that, Angular 2. Yeah, it's got Angular
Yeah,
2.
I need to, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So I just need to. There is a bit of a bug with this at the moment. That you need to kind of restore all the npm packages. I'm not quite sure why that is. So we're just going to kind of let that happen for a minute, and we'll come back in a second.
It's probably, I guess, the reason why they want to do that restore is because they don't want to ship the npm packages with the
Probably,
which
yeah.
is the best thing, right? Because if
Yeah.
those updates have been made and we release every year,
Yeah.
some of those npm packages will be
Yeah.
massively out of date.
But there's a weird thing that if you do file a new project and try and build it, it doesn't. You have to specifically press restore.
Oh right, so it
packages,
doesn't do like
It
a
doesn't seem to
do like a
automatically do it,
nougat
no, no.
restore
Nougat.
a nougat
Yeah.
a nugget
Nugget, NuGet.
nougat
Yeah, that's
restore.
it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, definitely not 'cause it's npm.
Yeah, but it's not doing that
It's just-
style.
It's just not.
Yeah, we will cut this bit out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we should. I think it's funny. Anyway, we need to wait for that to happen. So
Okay. How long's that taking?
I
I guess if
determined
you switch
period of
into
time.
your output window. I can't use your mouse.
No,
Can
that's
you use
because
your
it's my
mouse?
mouse. It's tuned to my way of using things. I am in the
Uh,
output window.
That's the package manager.
Right,
Go
okay.
if you go click that top bit there. It should say there. You go. It should tell me what it's doing. Look.
Okay, so there's a few things here. We've got this client app folder. So this is kind of where so in this case it's Angular or React, whatever the framework is, that's
Yeah.
where it lives basically.
Okay.
And there's a whole structure underneath this. So we've got quite a nice sort of well-structured Angular application.
And it's Angular 2 because it's in TypeScript. TypeScript is
Yeah.
the default language
Absolutely.
of Angular
yeah,
2.
Yeah. But if you're using some other framework, even Angular 1, whatever it is, that's where it lives basically.
Okay, yeah.
The interesting bit here, if we look at startup, so this is still an ASP.NET application.
Yeah.
If we go in here, we're using this thing called, this middleware called Webpack Dev Middleware.
Right.
And this is the thing that does that server-side pre-rendering,
Yeah.
which is a massive performance gain. It's a big SEO gain as well. And also we've got this hot module replacement thing. So that basically means that whenever you change any of the JavaScript or HTML in VS, it will live update the browser, which
Yeah.
is great again for productivity. So
So once you've booted up your application, like we're doing now, then you make changes to the JavaScript.
Yeah.
It's gonna, even if though you're doing it in TypeScript,
yeah.
it's going to notice that there's been a change on TypeScript. It's
Yeah.
going to compile the JavaScript from the TypeScript.
Yeah.
It's going to then do all the dependency stuff that Webpack does, and then it's going to hot module switch that into the actual live application. So you're basically making an edit in TS,
and then push that to the browser.
it will be immediately available in the browser as an update.
Like basically just a load of server-side magic.
It's like a million things happening in coordination and synchronization.
So let's just take a little quick look. So this is a very simple app. It just shows. So we've just got this.
Sorry, I'm not actually on your screen.
Okay, so this is the default app. So you've got this little counter thing, which is kind of interesting. You've got fetch data that gets it from an MVC controller that's in the application as well. So very very basic Angular app. So let's have a look at doing some stuff with this. So we go on the counter page. If I go to in the client app, counter, and first of all, I'll just look at the HTML page. I'm just going to make that a bit more visible, and I'm just going to dock this over here so we can see what we're doing. Put that over there. So I can just make a simple change here, and then as soon as I click save, that's going to update in the browser straight away.
Okay,
so that's really cool. Okay, but that's HTML. That's kind of relatively easy. But what about if I do the same thing in the actual JavaScript? So if I open TypeScript. If I open the TypeScript page here. So what this does, you can see kind of how it works. It's got this current count thing, and then each time you do it, it increments the count, which is why you get this kind of thing here.
Yep.
So I'm just going to make a little change here and change here. Current count, I'm just going to add 100 rather than 1.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I'll update that, and then if you watch over here,
yep.
You see it's incremented by 100 instead. So
try something for me just now, right? If we change this and put in less, and then save that now.
Yep. It'll reset. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does reset to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the point is that we've edited TypeScript, we've
Yep.
saved it, and magic's happened, and it's ended up on the browser without really doing anything. That's the cool thing here. Okay, so so that's basically the single page application template. It's very cool. If you want to do single page application but still want to use MVC, that's the place to start basically.
Right.
Okay. Next thing is around just some of the improvements with HTML. So I'm just going to close this down. Sorry, not with HTML, with the editors just in generally. So HTML editors, JavaScript editors, etc. So I've got a pre-created project here, which I'm going to just load up. Where is it? It's in here. I think that's the one there. So this is just a standard ASP.NET Core project.
There's a thing which is really annoying me. I'm going to have to go and redo my blog now in Angular 2. Because I've been wanting to do it in Angular 2 for ages.
Yeah.
And then I've just sort of, now I'm going to have to do it, aren't I?
You're going to have to
do it. You just realised that I need to go back and actually build something in this.
It's pretty cool. I mean,
why does that not fill me with joy always?
Because it's like a whole new thing, isn't it?
I've done a bit of Angular 2 already, but I've just not done anything actually of size. So I always use my blog as an example of something trying to iterate on it all the time. But now I realise
or just do it or React, or I don't know. I don't even
React with Redux. That thing.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the template.
But I know how Angular 2 works. Another thing to learn.
Well, there we go. Okay, so this is run the application now. Now what I want to show you now is this extension that I've got called the Web Accessibility Checker.
Okay.
So what it does, it's basically, it runs through BrowserLink, so I can see all the options for it just here.
Okay.
And it's basically checking your application for web accessibility.
Right.
So things like, it's picked up a few things here. So it's saying every HTML document has to have a lang attribute.
Right.
So I can go in here, I can look at my layout page. I can see that indeed I do not have a lang attribute, so I can add that in. Just make it en. Save.
Interesting. So that's doing it on that's actually looking at the HTML which is in the browser.
Yeah.
And then you're going back and editing in the Razor view.
Yeah.
Because this wouldn't be useful if it was just analysing the Razor view.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because the Razor view is very different to what actually ends up.
It's
on
not
the
actually
browser.
compiled HTML, but then it needs to be done.
That's why it's using BrowserLink.
Ah, cool.
BrowserLink's a lot the kind of the core to a lot of this stuff actually. It's so that's gone away now. I fixed that problem. So
Okay.
that's a really, if you're doing web accessibility, if you care about that, which you should do.
Yeah.
There's definitely a cool little add-in to have there. Right. One thing I want to show you now is around some of the JavaScript editors.
Links can be distinguished without relying on colour. You don't care about people's colour blindness, do you?
No, I do care about that. I do care about that. And you've reminded me of a bit of my demo, which I was going to
just skip over.
Yeah.
Right, cool.
Now then, so now if we look at the bottom of this page, we've got this little footer here.
Yeah.
Now, quite often with this, you try and make it a little bit lighter, so it kind of looks a bit. It looks like a sort of sub part of the page.
Yeah.
So let's go to my CSS here. And I'm just going to create a new style. Oops.
See, I've just converted my CSS on my site to less.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is again talking about things that I, and I couldn't decide between SAS or less. Or
yeah, I don't know. I can't help you really.
I've done it already. Like, I've done it. I chose less.
Okay.
I don't know why.
But I'm sure that's the right choice. So I'm going to add a colour.
Spelt wrong.
It's spelt wrong, but right in terms of CSS standards.
And I'll never let them get away with that.
Okay, so I've changed that to 9999999,
Yep.
whatever that is, light grey. We can see that that's now a light grey colour. Well, you probably can't see that, but it is. Well, the reason I've done that is because if you look here, the accessibility checker's getting involved again.
Yeah.
And it's saying, if I just maximise this, it's saying the contrast between the foreground and the background does not meet the contrast ratio standards, i.e. it's too light a grey.
Yeah.
So we need to change the grey. So what I can do, this is where my little Surface Dial gets involved.
Oh, right.
Now this is a very cool little device.
The Surface Dial?
Surface Dial, yeah.
This
little fella down here, yeah.
Yeah.
So what this is, it's just a piece of hardware. It's called Surface Dial, but it works with any Windows PC.
Yep.
It's Bluetooth enabled, and it lets you use a dial to operate things.
Okay.
And there's some support in Visual Studio via an extension called the Surface Dial Tools extension,
Okay.
which I've got installed. So what it lets me do, if I click into here, I can press and hold on the dial,
Yeah.
and it's going to bring up that lovely little menu. See that menu?
Yeah.
And I can scroll around on the dial and choose different things.
Yep.
So I'm going to go to the editor, if I can find it. There it is, editor. And then using the dial, if you watch this, I'm just going to spin the dial. And can you see how the CSS is just changing?
Oh, yeah.
How cool is that? Just using the dial to spin it round, and that's like.
Oh, you're basically cycling a grey, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to a darker grey. That seems okay to me. And click save. That's going to upload. That's a darker grey, and now the accessibility problem's gone.
Oh wow, okay.
So Surface Dial, very cool. It's kind of advertised for like drawing and stuff, but it's useful in lots of styles. It's great for like reading Twitter, browsing the web.
Yeah,
it's really cool. So it's relatively cheap as well. You don't need a Surface for it to work.
Okay.
Okay, right. So that's HTML. So the next thing I want to look at is around JavaScript. So we've got some improvements in the JavaScript editors as well. So if I go to my JavaScript file here, I'm just going to quickly bash out a little bit of JavaScript code. Now, as you know, Mr. BB, I'm not the best JavaScript developer in the world. Right. So you are my real-time debugger as I write this. Okay. So I'm going to create a function, and I can just tab, and it's going to create things for me.
Okay.
Now, I don't want that bit. What are you laughing for?
Because you could, I reckon you could have probably tabbed and got.
Could I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to
do
that. And in here I'm going to create
self-executing anonymous function.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you've said what it is. And I'm going to create another function called hello. Again, so I'm just tabbing here, and this is going to take a parameter called greeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm calling a function called hello, passing the word hello into it as a greeting. So I'm going to add a bit of code here now. A constant, just tab again. Oops, not tab. Elm, I'm going to call this. I'm going to say document.qs, and it's going to select that as a query selector.
Right. Yeah, that's like the stuff they have, the IntelliSense they have in Visual Studio, where it's not just about anymore the first few letters.
No,
it's actually
it fully understands the object and the thing that you're working with. Yeah. So I can select H1 there. Okay to that. I'm going to do another constant.
So you're going to get a list of all of your
all
elements.
of the H1s, yeah. This one's called text, and I'm going to use this cool little syntax, which I don't know what it's called.
That is an ES6 string concatenation syntax, isn't it? So basically, you're concatenating the variable greeting with the string world, and those little speech marks are called backticks. On a Mac,
I know them as the thing that you need to do in Markdown that makes it code.
Right, yeah, they are. Yeah. So 3 of those will make it code in Markdown, but those are called backticks, and they are just underneath the escape key on a Windows keyboard, and they are just, I think I haven't got my Mac, they're roughly in the same sort of position, but not under the escape. There's no escape key on a Mac, so it's just on the top leftish.
It's on the keyboard of Mac somewhere. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say Elm dot, and again it understands that that's a HTML element. I can select the inner HTML. I'm going to say that that's equal to greeting. Sorry, text. Okay, pretty straightforward. Not the world's most complex JavaScript, but it is JavaScript. So let's just save that. Oh, and I need to add a H1 to my page as well. I'm just going to add a H1 there. Save everything. See that update. Hello world. There we go. So that's been written there by JavaScript.
Okay,
so
you didn't refresh your browser there either,
no,
did you?
It's just again, it's all through browser link. This is so. So what's cool, if I put this side by side, I go back into my thing there, I can say Wayne's World. It just felt like that was a good word to use. I don't know why. Again, it's so we've got JavaScript updating through browser link automatically. Awesome. So that's pretty cool, I think. Now, what's interesting now is we're going to use the dial again.
Yep.
Now I'm running in Chrome. You may have noticed I'm using Chrome here. There's a reason for that. We now have JavaScript debugging in Visual Studio via Chrome.
Okay.
So traditionally, you've only been able to do this in Internet Explorer, but we've now enabled it in Chrome as well. So I'm going to put a breakpoint there on that one. I'm just going to stop this. Maximize my Visual Studio again. Okay, now I'm going to choose. I'm going to use my dial again. So I'm going to do a long hold on the dial, and this time I'm going to use the debug menu. Okay. Yep. I'm going to select that. That's now in debug mode.
Okay.
I'm going to click on my dial again to basically launch the application, and I'll be able to actually step through using the dial, which is quite a cool thing. So hopefully it's going to catch that error for us in a second. Not that error, that breakpoint. Okay, there we go. It's caught the breakpoint. So again, I'm running in Chrome as a browser.
Yeah.
I've got Visual Studio, full Visual Studio IDE. And I'm debugging JavaScript in Visual Studio, running in Chrome as a browser. We've never been able to do this before, so this is quite a cool thing. And now I can just click on the dial to step into, and I can step over. And so I'm using the dial there to control my debugging experience, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And this is proper debugging as well. So if we look at one of these things, if we add a watch there, we can see the value of this, and we can actually edit this. So I can say Webpack Wednesday, and just let that run. Oops. And there you go, it's updated it as well. So it's a proper debugging experience between JavaScript, Visual Studio and Chrome.
Cool.
So that's kind of it really in terms of the overview. Most of this stuff has been stolen from a build session by Mads Christensen, where he spends an hour talking about this stuff and a load of other stuff as well. So sorry, Mads, if
we stole your stuff.
We stole your stuff, totally. Yeah, I'm not going to try and disguise that. It's totally been stolen. So you can check out that. If you look at the GitHub repo, there's a full write-up with all the links to the extensions, links to Mads' video of the full session, links to all the other resources that we've talked about as well. So you can go and check that out. And there's also, on the GitHub repo, I've created a project in each of the new templates as well. So you can just go and have a look at what's in those projects and how they work.
Okay.
But that's it for now.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. We'll join us next Wednesday for another Webpack Wednesday.